All right, let's do it. Bryce Gelman here with you for the next 25 minutes talking Knicks, talking Stephen A's comments that he made on First Take where he bashed the Knicks, bashed their lack of identity, a million other things. Another sensationalized take from the king of the sensationalized take, Stephen A. Smith, the king of talking heads in the media. And there's a reason why the guy is the most valuable media member, the guy who makes the most money. And the biggest talent in terms of sports media because of takes like that. So we're going to get into that. We're also going to discuss the season as it stands at the All-Star break. Of course, the Knicks have 2 All-Star starters. I don't care what the NBA. If in case you live under a rock, they're doing this thing with 4 different teams, and I don't know. It's like a tournament. Whatever. I mean, listen, I'm not too into it. I believe the hype when I see it. If there is any hype, I don't think people are too excited about the All-Star game. And why would you be? So I don't know. The Knicks, they got 2 players. Awesome. Terrific. We'll be able to watch Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns do some work in the All-Star game. Amazing. Terrific. The Knicks, as it stands right now, 36-18. They've won 8 of their last 10. Listen, this, and I think we forget this, or maybe we consider this a little bit too much, and that's why there's a little bit too much vitriol going around, the Knicks fan base in terms of where they are, what their record is. Are they good enough to compete against the top teams in both conferences? Knicks are 36-18, guys. Let's just take a moment. Let's just take a moment to sit here, realize that. Let's let that sink in. The Knicks are 36-18. They're number 3 in the Eastern Conference. What the hell do you want them to be? You want them to be number 1? You want them to have the best offensive rating in the league? The truth of the matter is, this is one of, if not the best offensive teams in the league. That is a major plus. And obviously the defense leaves a lot to be desired. It's not good. And the Knicks have a defensive rating of 119.4 since January 1st. A defensive rating of 125.7 since February 1st. And keep in mind, OG Anunoby got hurt on February 1st. So the Knicks are obviously reeling without OG Anunoby. And if you look at what the Knicks have done, and I understand the criticism. I understand the concern, especially following a game like the one we saw on Wednesday, in which the Knicks almost blew a game they had in their hands multiple times. I mean, watching that game, it was absolutely infuriating throughout the course of that one. The fact that the Knicks, were up 18 at the most, and then just could not pull away whatsoever. Every 3 or 4 minutes, it seemed like the Knicks would go on an insane run. The Hawks would answer back with 3 or 4 open threes in a row. The Knicks can't defend the 3. I mean, we're going to get into that. I wanted to start with the positives. I didn't want to start all doom and gloom. But the Knicks can't defend the 3. We'll get into that. But yeah, that game against the Hawks, I was infuriated. I'm sure a lot of you out there were also infuriated about the Knicks' performance in that game and the lack of defensive effort. And keep in mind, it was the second leg of a back-to-back after beating the Pacers the night before. And, they traveled from Indiana back to New York. I mean, you have to keep that in mind. The Hawks had a day off in between. I understand that. Like that has to be taken into account for, right? Like you got yeah, all right, fine. They had a back-to-back. They still almost blew that game multiple times. And it's a miracle they won it. I can't believe I'm saying that. George Niang almost kills the Knicks in this game. Jalen Brunson ends up being the hero, as we have seen. I mean, how many times? How many times? Against the Raptors? We saw it against the Rockets. I mean, he is just coming into his own. He is not arguably, he's the clutchest player in the NBA. If he doesn't win the clutch award this year, the most clutch player in the league, we should storm the NBA's offices in Manhattan. We should do that because that would be a joke and a travesty. But Jalen Brunson finally coming into his own. Karl-Anthony Towns, man. I mean, what more could you say of him? He's been unbelievable on the offensive end. I'm not going to say both, but he is a force to be reckoned with. 40 plus points against the Pacers. He scores 40 against the Pacers. And then follows it up with another 40-point effort. He was unbelievable against the Hawks. Unbelievable. But people aren't going to want to look at that. They're going to want to look at the 148 points allowed in overtime to the Hawks without Jalen Johnson, without Hunter, who they just traded away. They'd like to point out the negatives. And I'm normally, I wouldn't say, all the time with this, but I definitely am someone who finds himself, dealing with negatives in my life, with the Knicks, with the Yankees, with the Giants. They're right there in front of you. With the Knicks, 36-18, you're without OG Anunoby. You haven't had Mitchell Robinson. Karl-Anthony Towns, as I've said multiple times, leaves a lot to be desired on the defensive end. And that's your starting center. So you are at a disadvantage constantly with Karl-Anthony Towns on the defensive side, with Karl-Anthony Towns in the lineup. So you have to keep that in mind as well. Stephen A. And let's transition into that. I only did 6, whatever. I mean, I'm all over the place today, but I got to talk about Stephen A. I haven't tweeted about it because I wanted to react to it like this. It's better, whatever. You get my real take. I suck at tweeting. Stephen A. Smith. This is what he says. Their defensive rating is one of the worst in the league. You've got Mikal Bridges. You've got Josh Hart. And still, you're looking at a team right now that's giving up points in bunches. So he mentioned 2 guys there. Mikal Bridges, fine. Is there not another guy in the Knicks team that's considered one of the best defensive wings in the NBA? Did he forget that OG Anunoby plays for the Knicks? He mentioned Josh Hart, who is arguably the 4th best on-ball defender on this team. So it's just a little confusing that he refrained from mentioning the name of OG Anunoby, who's been out the last 3 or 4 games since February 1st against the Lakers. So that's the first part of this. Saying that the Knicks have one of the worst defensive ratings in the league. Well, checks notes, they're the 16th defensive rating in the league. So nowhere near the bottom. They're in the middle. If they were at the bottom, they wouldn't be 36-18. So that is wrong. It just seems that Stephen A. Listen, I don't blame him. He's starting to stick his beak into the political realm. He's putting out feelers as to what people think about a 2028 presidential run. He's clearly not focused on the Knicks. He's not watching the same product that we watch each night. He's not in touch with the sports world. He reads a box score, and then he comments on that box score. And you know what? The viewers of First Take are stupid enough where that doesn't matter. That you're going to get called out by the diehards on Twitter, but the casuals who watch First Take, who like the bloviating, who like the sensationalized takes from Stephen A., are going to sit there like this, eating up every word he says. This is work for him. It's a tried and true method of putting out takes there that get clicks. And for the people that watch, they like the screaming. They like, again, the hyper sensationalized takes. They love it. All right? People love it. But Knicks fans correctly have called him out on this. Another thing he said, and honestly, I don't disagree with everything he said. It's just the fact that he doesn't watch the team. The fact that he's not locked in to his so-called favorite team, it's all an act. We know that. We know that Stephen A. is constantly screaming about the Knicks because it gets clicks on the internet and it gets people to tune in on ESPN. This is the other part of his take. You look at them and their lack of a defensive prowess or identity, there's no way in hell they have a chance against Cleveland or Boston. It's just that they should be able to beat everyone else. First off, the Celtics, defending champions. They won the world title last year. They have amazing depth. Joe Mazzulla is a great coach. They have Jason Tatum. They have Jaylen Brown. And they've got arguably the best role player in the NBA in Derek White. So saying that the Knicks should be able to beat these teams wouldn't be an added plus if the Knicks did beat the teams. Keep in mind, this is the first year of this Knicks team in their current iteration in a 4-year window. And you're complaining that as it stands right now, they can't beat Boston, who just won the NBA championship. The other thing I have a problem with is saying that they for sure cannot beat Cleveland. They've played them once all year. And if you remember in that game, they were up until the fourth quarter when the starters at that point of the year were playing 40-plus minutes each game. The Knicks had zero depth. The starters lost their legs and lost the Knicks that game. Jalen Brunson went cold in the fourth quarter, and the Knicks lost the game they should have won. You're telling me after watching it, the Knicks can't beat Cleveland? You're telling me the addition of DeAndre Hunter is what really sets that team apart from the Knicks? Really? Really? Are we also refraining to mention the fact that the Knicks have 3 more games against the Cleveland Cavaliers this year? Oh, one other thing, Stephen A. Who are the Knicks getting back in the next few weeks? I must have missed that. I don't really follow the team. I just look at box scores and scream about it on TV. The Knicks are getting Mitchell Robinson back. Lest we forget what that guy did to Cleveland in the 2023 playoffs, in the first round of the playoffs. He was the Knicks' best player. Straight up. Full stop. Knicks' best player in that series. Dominated. Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, specifically on the boards. Dominated. So you're sitting here, and you're telling me with the Knicks getting Mitchell Robinson back, they have no chance? No chance. Not a slight chance. Not a 10% chance, a 5% chance, a 1% chance. You're telling me they have no chance. That's garbage. Watch the games. Watch this team. Follow the news. Don't just scream about it on TV. I understand that's not going to do anything. It's not going to change who Stephen A is. It's not going to change. He's one of the most busy people in television. He's got a million things to do. He hosts his own podcast. He hosts his own show. He's with Sean Hannity on Fox News. He does interviews constantly, left and right, for his rising political career now. The issue is that these takes have been coming before Stephen A was even interested in politics. Before he was even interested. And I know it's so easy to fall into the trap of Knicks for clicks. Other people do it. That's why it's, so common in the media. That's why the Knicks get all this shit. That's why you see the awful mock trades from Bleacher Report, from SB Nation, from even ESPN. Those idiotic, nonsensical mock trades. It's because they know Knicks fans will click on the article, scream about it on social media, and it's going to get more views. That's why they do it. That's why this whole Stephen A act of being a Knicks fan is so, it's so hyperbole. Like it's like, it's fiction. He's screaming about, it's just not real. He does it so well that people buy it. But every Knicks fan in their own right, in their own minds, knows that is bullshit. It's bullshit. I do agree with him on one thing, though, that this team doesn't have a defensive identity. He did also say the Knicks had no identity whatsoever. From what I saw, the Knicks do have an identity. It's just whether or not you think that's going to work. And you think that come playoff time, that is going to translate into series wins and a conference finals appearance, at least, at the minimum. The Knicks don't play good defense. They allow too many wide open threes, inexcusable amounts of wide open threes. The rotations are slow. Every other game, Mikal Bridges not playing amazing defense. OG Anunoby is listen, I'd like to see him when he comes back. He's getting some much needed rest. I understand he's hurt, but OG Anunoby is run down. So you're not getting consistent performances from the Knicks on the defensive end. Is that concerning? For me, yeah, it is. But the fallback option, the one thing you can fall back on if you're a Knicks fan, is you got Mitchell Robinson coming back in the coming weeks. Amazing. Terrific. What the hell is he going to be with the Knicks? Who knows? We have no idea until we see it, okay? But to sit here on national television for Stephen A to say the Knicks have no chance to beat Cleveland, I mean, listen, they have proven now twice that they might have troubles against Boston, specifically with Karl-Anthony Towns defending the pick and roll or the pick and pop or anything of that matter. He can't do a thing against Boston. They were getting whatever they wanted in the paint and from three, as the Knicks constantly allow. But Mitchell Robinson's coming back. I'm not sitting here, pulling out my hair. I'm not going to beat the dead horse. That is the criticism about the Knicks defense. Again, as I mentioned before, the Knicks have had a defensive rating of 125.7 since February 1st. I understand that's a small sample size. The Knicks don't have OG Anunoby right now. They are not playing great defense, and they're still winning games. Like, the Knicks offense and their identity right now is offensive firepower. It's we are going to beat you one-on-one no matter who it is, no matter who has it going on any given night. Whether it be Jalen Brunson, whether it be Karl-Anthony Towns. Just the issue is that if the other team has it going offensively, the Knicks will constantly find themselves in a close battle in which they can lose on any given night, depending on what they can do offensively. Their defense is not good enough to make up for a bad night from the field. It simply is not. That is the Knicks' identity. And if there's anything about Stephen A and what he said that's true, it's that. And you can be concerned about it. But to go on TV and to turn it into a completely other thing, it's blasphemy. And again, as I keep mentioning, no Knicks fan in their right minds is sitting there believing a single thing that Stephen A says about the Knicks. We all have our own thoughts and opinions about this team. We consume more Knicks media. We watch more games. We watch each game from tip-off to the final whistle. Stephen A does not. I know I just talked about it for 12, 13 minutes. It needed to be discussed, okay? I know I'm a little hypocritical when it comes to this. I contradict myself. Like, oh, it's Knicks for clicks and, don't buy into it, don't discuss. Like, I'm going to. I just think it's a joke. And I know that that's the intention behind it. And I'm kind of falling victim for it. But it had to be discussed. It had to be discussed. Now, going forward with this Knicks team, the Knicks are 25-11 in the Eastern Conference. That's not good enough. How bad the Eastern Conference is, that's significantly worse than what the Cavs and what the Celtics have been able to do against the Eastern Conference. Against the West, they're 11-7. I mean, the West is stacked. There aren't any easy opponents. Maybe besides the Jazz. Knicks lost a game against the Jazz. So there aren't any easy opponents in the West besides one or two teams. So you're constantly going to be in a dogfight. And if you're on the road, that's difficult, obviously. But with this Knicks team sitting, again, 36-18, the most talented Knicks team we have seen since the 1970s. And people are still complaining left and right. I understand the concern of watching this team on the defensive end give up 20 to 30 wide open threes a night. That is a concern. I understand it. But to tell me the Knicks have no chance, none, against the Celtics, against the Cavs in the playoffs, it's asinine. It's untrue. It's nonsensical. The Knicks have an undeniable amount of talent on the team. It just hasn't come together on the defensive end. Knicks are going to get back Mitchell Robinson healthy. I think it's said a lot about where he is. And he looks jacked. He looks amazing. He looks like he dropped 30 to 40 pounds. He's in the best shape that he's been in years. The Knicks getting Mitchell Robinson back, clearly the Knicks think will be impactful because they pulled all trade offers off the table at the deadline. The Knicks were shopping him. There's no doubt about it. When he was the only tradable contract on the roster, like, of course he's going to get, involved in trade talks. But the Knicks said, you know what? We like what we have right now. We got Delon Wright. That's the one move we're going to make. So we're going to stay tight, and we are going to go through the rest of the season as the team that we have currently. And you don't do that unless you are confident in Mitchell Robinson's rehab. So we're going to get a healthy Mitchell Robinson back. So again, it just doesn't make sense how you could sit there and be Stephen A. and have all these casuals watching you and drooling over every word that you say. And you're going to sit there and say the Knicks have no chance to beat the top two teams in the Eastern Conference. Like, again, it's concerning. The Knicks have 0 wins against any top two team in either conference. Yes. It seems like they don't play their best against the best teams in the league, and that is a concern. But Mitchell Robinson's coming back. And I'm holding out hope that he comes back and he looks at least close to 100%. Maybe close to 90 or 85%. I think that will be enough. We saw Karl Anthony Towns be extremely efficient, playing behind the stifled talent. I believe 4-time Defensive Player of the Year in Rudy Gobert. Now, no one's saying that Mitchell Robinson is the defensive prowess is anything like Rudy Gobert, but you're talking about rebounding on the offensive end. You're talking about shot blocking, all stuff that Karl Anthony Towns will not need to not slave over, but he's not going to need to worry about it on a nightly basis. I don't think Mitchell Robinson is going to start, but I do think we see plenty of minutes with the two of them playing together. And guess what? Karl Anthony Towns is not going to be he's not going to need to be a part of the defensive-minded lineups that the Knicks will throw out there in close situation in games. We got CBW. Are the Knicks a little like the Yankees, feast on bad pitcher and then disappear against the better teams? I wouldn't say they're comparable, considering the fact that, you know, the Knicks have struggled for so long and the Yankees have had a proven track record of failing against the best teams. I'm not going to put the Knicks in that same category yet. Because, again, as I said, CBW, this is the first iteration of this team. The Yankees have had their core stars since 2017, 2018. And Stanton, Judge, Garrett Cole in 2019. Like, that is the core of their roster. Glaber going back to 2019, 2018 as well. It's the same guys. The Knicks, they've one player from earlier than 2020. And that is Mitchell Robinson. And the Knicks are getting that guy back. So am I concerned? Slightly, but not to the point where I'm going to stand sit on national TV and claim that my Knicks have no chance of beating the top two teams in the Eastern Conference. I'll believe it when I see it. There's no rush to judgment here, like Stephen A. is. So that'll do it for today. Again, the Knicks, 36-18. I like where they're at. 8-2 in the last 10. Like, what more could you ask for as a Knicks fan? How many bad, unwatchable teams have we seen in the last 15 years? Enjoy it, Knicks fans. Try not to take it for granted. I believe this team will be able to put it together on the defensive end. If they don't, then we could cry about it at the end of the year when they lose inevitably in the playoffs. For now, I'm going to sit back and wait. The Knicks still have games to play. 28 games left. There's a lot of time left in the season for them to put it together defensively, specifically with the return of Mitchell Robinson. So again, I'm not gonna worry about it. I'm not gonna split my hairs over it. But Stephen A. is an idiot, and if you take anything he says at face value, that's your problem. That's your problem. All right, I'm Bryce Gelman. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Knicks, of course, their two best players, Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns, playing in the All-Star game or games, whatever the hell you want to call it, on Sunday. Excited to watch that. Not so much excited for anything else from All-Star Weekend. Maybe the 3-point contest. That's usually fun, but All-Star Weekend is not what it's what it was chalked up to be, 15, 20, 30 years ago. So again, exciting to see our guys. More Yankee stuff as spring training gets started. More Giant stuff. One Giant Step with Sean Morash and myself out this morning. Check that out. We talk Stafford and all the good stuff. But until next week, I'll see you all then. Have a good weekend.